podcast is part of the Sports Social Podcast Network. Sports Social, now on the Sports Social Podcast Network.
Hi, it's Bryn Lucas from the Autosport F1 and Motorsport podcast, and you can follow this year's Formula One season with us on the Sports Social Podcast Network. Our expert Formula One team are on the ground at every Grand Prix to bring you regular access behind the scenes and peel back the veil of the Formula One world. Listen to the Autosport F1 and Motorsport podcast now, wherever you get your podcasts.
The Two-Footed Podcast is brought to you by EPLindex.com and our presenting sponsor, Liberty Shield. Liberty Shield is a VPN provider. A virtual privacy network allows you to go online, change your location, access things you're geo-blocked from, while keeping your data safe. So, as an example, if you are a UK expat and want access to BBC iPlayer to watch Match of the Day, or ITV Hub, or all four, but you get that message that says this content is not available in your location, a Liberty Shield VPN gets you around that block, allows you to watch whatever you want on those services while also keeping your data safe. And it goes further than that. It allows you to open up Netflix's entire library by just changing your IP address. Liberty Shield is the #1 rated VPN provider on Trustpilot with 5-star ratings across the board. So go to libertyshield.com right now, use the code EPL25 and get either the hardware package or the software package. The hardware package is a router that you plug into your existing router, and any item you want to change the IP address on, be it your phone or your television, you connect that to the new Liberty Shield router. All other items can remain connected to your existing router. There's also a software package which is instantly downloadable to your device and you can get using straight away. Again, libertyshield.com, EPL25 for 25% off at checkout. We're also brought to you by Home of Hopcroft, a giftware and homeware company located in Scotland but shipping worldwide. Check out homeofhopcroft.co.uk and do check out the EPL Index and Anfield Index shops, which you'll find on Etsy. Use the codes EPL10 or RED10 for 10% off at checkout. And lastly, do remember to check out A Tad Predictable, hosted by Tadiwa. That podcast is on this feed before every Premier League match week. And then the EPL Roundtable, hosted by Kevin DeVries, on its own EPL Roundtable feed. So just search EPL Roundtable in your podcast device. And that's out after every match week. Now, on with the show. What's good, boys and girls? Two-Footed Podcast. Today is Friday. It's the 8th of March. It's overcast and cold, but not as cold as it will be for those Brighton players when the dressing down they get. Maybe it'll be really, really warm after their hiding last night. Roma 4, Brighton 0. Paulo Dybala scored on 13 minutes. Romelu Lukaku made it 2 just before half-time. Gianluca Mancini made it 3 on 48 minutes. Now, I would say I thought that one was offside, but Brian Cristante made it 4 on 68 minutes. Brighton were really poor. Really poor, really blunt in attack. And when you play Jason Steele, you deserve to lose. 4-0 to Roma. I think we can put Roma in the quarterfinal draw. We can also put Liverpool in the quarterfinal draw. Sparta Prague 1, Liverpool 5. Alexis McAllister, 2 from Nunez, 1 from Luis Diaz, and 1 from Dominic Szoboszlai. Connor Bradley own goal. All that Sparta had to cheer, though Sparta, to be fair to them, did play well and had a number of really good chances. Caoimhín Kelleher kept Liverpool in the game first half, but once Liverpool got the second and then the third goal, that was really all she wrote. Qarabag 2, Leverkusen 2. Benzia put Quarterback 1 up on 26 minutes. Janino scored just on the stroke of half-time to make it 2-0. Florian Wirtz got one back for Leverkusen after just horrendous play from Quarterback to gift Leverkusen a goal. Leverkusen were never going to score last night until that moment. They were just so flat. They looked exhausted. You could tell they were just trying to get through this game to get themselves to the weekend and focus in on what's really important to them this year, which is obviously winning the Bundesliga. Patrick Schick equalizing in stoppage time to put Leverkusen back in control of the tie. Milan 4, Slavia Prague 2. Olivier Giroud put Milan 1 up on 34 minutes, 8 minutes after El Hadji Malik Diouf had been sent off for a wild tackle that left Christian Pulisic in a crumpled heap. But Milan made tougher work of this than they should have. They go 1 up. 2 minutes later, Dudira equalizes. It's 1-1. Reinders puts them 2-1 up, and then Ruben Loftus-Cheek makes it 3-1, just on the stroke of half-time. Schranz scores for Slavia 20 minutes into the second half, and all of a sudden it looks like Milan might bottle this. But a late Christian Pulisic goal meant that Milan win 4-2 and will go into the second leg in a strong position. Freiburg 1, West Ham 0. Gregoric with the only goal of the game. I'd still fancy West Ham to get through, given the second leg will be in London. Benfica 2, Rangers 2. Tom Lawrence opened the scoring on 7 minutes. Angel Di Maria equalised from the penalty spot in the 2nd minute of first half stoppage time. Dujon Sterling put Rangers back ahead in the 5th minute of first half stoppage time. And then Connor Goldson put through his own net on 67 minutes to give Benfica a draw. Benfica dominated the game, but Rangers' game plan was much smarter, and I fancy Rangers to get through. Marseille can join Liverpool and Roma as having 1 foot in the quarterfinals. A 4-0 win at home to Villarreal. Jordan Verretou opened the scoring. Yerson Mosquera, who's on loan at Villarreal from Wolves, put through his own net to make it 2. Pierre-Emerick Aubameyang made it 3 from the penalty spot before half-time, and then he made it 4 on 59 minutes. Easiest game that Pau Lopez will ever play. Villarreal had 5 shots and none on target. Embarrassing. Moving on to the Europa Conference League, and Lille look a good bet to advance. 3-0 winners on the night away to Sturm Graz. Jonathan David with 2. Edin Zhegrova with the other. Jonathan David's great season continues. Maccabi Tel Aviv look a really good bet to get through as well. 4-1 winners away to Olympiacos. Zahavi got 2. Shahar got 1, and Peretz scored. El Kabi scored for Olympiacos. Now, the second leg is to be played in Slovakia. So, Maccabi don't have the benefit of a second leg at home, but with a 3-goal advantage, they should be fine. Molde 2, Club Brugge 1. Stenovic opened the scoring just before half-time. De Kuiper scored an 85th minute penalty to equalise for Club Brugge, but Gulbrandsen scored in the 92nd minute to give Molde a big win and make that a very, very well-balanced tie heading to the second leg. Ajax 0, Aston Villa 0, the most boring game you could ever imagine. 8 shots in the whole game, 2 on target in the whole game. Ezri Konsa sent off in the 83rd minute. Tristan Keuser sent off in the 86th minute. That was the only excitement in the game. Utter dreck. Villa will be thrilled. That's the perfect Unai Emery away in Europe. Villa will be strong favourites to come through from the second leg. Union St. Gillo 1-0, Fenerbahce 3, Michi Batshuayi, Jaden Oosterwold, and Dusan Tadic with the goals in that one. Servette 0, Victoria Plizen nil. At least Servette managed some shots, 12, 3 on target. Shame on Ajax. What happened to the once proud club? Dinamo Zagreb 2, PAOK nil. Bruno Petkovic with both goals in that one. And then finally, the game of the night, Maccabi Haifa 3, Fiorentina 4. Massive win for Fiorentina, given the second leg is at home. And Zola put them 1-0 up on 2 minutes. Sek equalised for Maccabi on 12 minutes. Then Gadi Kinda put Maccabi 2-1 up on 29 minutes. Lucas Beltran equalised on 58 minutes. Anan Kalali put Maccabi 3-2 up on 67 minutes. Rolando Mandragora equalised on 73 minutes. And then Antonin Barak with the winner on 95 minutes after Manuel Kathumana had been sent off for Maccabi on 80 minutes. So Fiorentina with the win. Now, again, as with the other Maccabi, Tel Aviv, Maccabi Haifa were not playing at home last night, so they don't have that advantage. And now they have to go away to play Fiorentina. The game is well balanced. We know there's no away goals, but I would still fancy Fiorentina to get through. So as we look at that right now, Lille, Maccabi Tel Aviv, I think you'd put both of them in the next round. You'd put Fenerbahce in the next round. Dinamo have a good lead, but you never know. PAOK might pull that out of the bag. The Molde Club Bruges one is well balanced, and obviously Villa and Ajax 0-0, Servette and Victoria 0-0. You'd fancy the teams playing at home, so you would fancy Villa and you would fancy Victoria. In the Europa League, the Sporting Atalanta game ended 1-1 on Wednesday night, so that one's really well balanced. Atalanta have the advantage of the second leg being at home, but Sporting set up really well away from home, so perhaps that will play into their hands. Put Roma in the quarterfinals, put Liverpool in the quarterfinals. Leverkusen will be strong favourites to beat Qarabag at home. Milan with a 2-goal advantage, you think, should go through. Freiburg West Ham is really well balanced. I still fancy West Ham, but look, Freiburg have something to hold on to. And Benfica 2, Rangers 2, obviously very, very good. That will favour Rangers at home with Ibrox behind them. And Marseille can be penned in, I think, for the quarterfinal. So both competitions shaping up really, really well. Lots of good games last night. Lots of good games. Some stinkers, but mostly very entertaining stuff. I think the biggest shock for me last night was just how poor Brighton were. Like, when I saw the team, obviously they were playing at the same time as Liverpool, so I didn't actually watch it at that time. I put Villa Ajax foolishly on the second screen. I was watching the Liverpool game and I didn't pay any attention at all to the Brighton game. I never checked the scores. I never checked Twitter or anything like that. And after the game, I saw a bunch of people taking the piss out of that clip of that fool on Football Daily saying that Brighton would win Serie A. Can't think of the chap's name, but absolutely nonsensical comment. And I saw all the... And Serie A fans are different to Premier League fans. Like, when a Serie A team beats a team from the Premier League or La Liga, all the fans of all the clubs tend to pile in and be very excited about it. So Serie A fans are very excited last night about their win over a Premier League team. Ignoring the fact that that's the 9th best team in the Premier League and that, you know, the top teams in the Premier League would wipe the floor with the top teams in Serie A. Liverpool would destroy Inter Milan. Manchester City would destroy AC Milan. I would bet significant amounts of money on Arsenal beating Juventus. And Aston Villa, in my money, for my money, would beat Bologna. And I think as you go down position by position, about the only one I would give favourite status to of the Italian clubs is I would back Napoli to beat West Ham in 7 versus 7. I would take Spurs over Roma. I would take United over Atalanta. I would take Newcastle over Fiorentina. Lazio Brighton's an interesting one. I might actually go Lazio on that one. I would take Wolves over Torino. You'd take Chelsea over Monza. Let me just refresh my memory on who's 12 and down in the Premier League. The 12 in the Premier League is Fulham. 12 in Serie A is my beloved Genoa. I would back Fulham to beat Genoa. Bournemouth would beat Lecce. I think Crystal Palace beat Empoli. Brentford beat Udinese. Everton would beat Frosinone. Nottingham Forest would beat Verona. Luton versus Cagliari. The game nobody wants to see. I might actually edge Cagliari in that one, but that would be close. Sassuolo would beat Burnley. Salernitana versus Sheffield United might be the saddest game that anyone has ever conceived. So at most, I'm giving Serie A 5 wins. Position by position, I'm giving them 5 wins against Premier League teams. Napoli, Lazio, and maybe the bottom 3. And that's it. And all the rest, I think the Premier League wins pretty comfortably. So, don't get too excited. That's all I'm saying. Just don't get too excited. We'll take a break. We'll come back with the news and the gossip. Then we'll do another break. And then we will have the return of Guy Drinkle. See you after this. Right, welcome back. So, in terms of news, it looks like Chris Wilder might well be on his way out at Sheffield United. Been talking about this, obviously, a fair bit recently. And he is to discuss the club's future and his future with the owner. Wilder says good things are happening off the pitch. He says, I'm going to Riyadh next week for meetings with the owners for 4 or 5 days, which, a little bit odd, considering you should be staying behind and working with your players and then going to Riyadh the following week during the international break. They understand the situation that we're in, a situation that you have massively contributed to. They're not liking the situation. I don't expect them to. We all take responsibility and we're all hurting, regardless of whether the owner's at every game. He watches diligently and we speak frequently, so he's keen to get stuff moving and planning. Paul Mitchell, who was the head of recruitment, he's left the club by mutual consent. I don't think Chris Wilder's going to last the season. I think he's going to go there. They're going to have a conversation. He's going to come back. They're going to lose some more games and he's going to be out. Now, there is some exciting stuff happening for Sheffield United. The ownership have announced that they've bought some land to build a new state-of-the-art first-team training centre, which is big. Wilder says, there's still some life in us. I've not been told we're relegated yet. I would welcome you to look at the Premier League table, Chris. You are 11 points behind Nottingham Forest and 35 goals worse off, which means that even if Forest get a points deduction, let's say they get 10 points, they'll be 1 point ahead of you, but 35 goals better off. That would then put Luton in the 17th spot, or potentially Everton. The only hope they have, the only hope them and Burnley have, is that Forest and Everton both get 10-point deductions. But they're 35 goals worse off than Forest and 42 goals worse off than Everton. And both of them are decent teams. And Sheffield United are atrocious. They are relegated. The last 11 games are largely pointless. Just make sure that when you turn up at Anfield, you defend as well as you did against Arsenal, against Brighton, against Villa, against Newcastle, against Burnley. Just make sure that that's how you defend. Keep that kind of energy about the club. We'll just do the gossip. And then we'll go to break and bring in Guy. Thomas Tuchel has targeted a return as Chelsea boss when he leaves Bayern Munich in the summer, but the German club is also interested in Manchester United. Someone said to me the other day that they'd heard that United had real interest in him. That would be interesting. Thomas Tuchel's a really good manager. The problem is, I don't know what Thomas Tuchel's going to be like as a team builder, because he didn't really get the chance to do it anywhere he's been. Like, he hasn't had a long-term job since leaving Mainz. And how long would he actually get at United? They need a lot. There's a lot of work needed there. And ideally, they should be looking to do it without spending enormous amounts of money. They should be looking for smart buys. They should be looking for long-term buys, building so that maybe they're not competitive for the next 2 to 3 years. But then in years 4, 5, and 6, all of a sudden they're in position to win the major honours with a sustainably built team that's aging together, developing together. Liverpool owners met Michael Edwards on Sunday in their attempts to convince the club's former sporting director to shape the post-Jurgen Klopp era. I believe that is going to happen. Mikel Arteta says his side's impressive form in front of goal will not change the club's plans, with Arsenal still expected to sign a striker. Let's see how much money they have. Alexander Zinchenko is a target for Bayern Munich and Newcastle. I doubt it. Newcastle don't have the money and don't have any need for a left back. Bayern might. Bayern can do better. Chelsea are among several Premier League clubs monitoring Nico Williams of Athletic Bilbao. Barcelona want to extend João Cancelo's loan for next season because they have no money, but Manchester City would prefer a permanent transfer, which is obviously smart. The agent of Georgian winger Vicha Kvaratskhelia says the 23-year-old will leave Napoli if the Italian club receive an offer they cannot turn down. Manchester United bosses are expected to block Mason Greenwood from going on the club's pre-season tour of the United States after he returns from Getafe. Yeah. Greenwood is on a list of potential signings for Barcelona. Right. Of course he is. Chelsea will be reliant on pure profit sales this summer to fund their transfer plans, with the Blues focused on offloading homegrown players such as Conor Gallagher, Trevoh Chalobah, and Armando Broja. The issue is everybody knows that they're desperate. Everybody knows they're going to get lowballed routinely. Chelsea owners are under pressure from a Strasbourg fan group to change their transfer strategy, having had an underwhelming season since Blue Coat Group acquired a majority stake in the French club last June. I mean, this was always going to be the case. The only reason they bought Strasbourg was to use it as a place to dump Chelsea players that, you know, need development and the like. They didn't do it out of the goodness of their hearts. They didn't do it to in any way help Strasbourg. And that's why when you look at the league table, Strasbourg are sitting in 12th. Manchester United have held initial talks about extending Kobe Manu's contract, which makes sense. Chelsea have made Crescencio Somerville one of their top targets. Odd. I mentioned this kid a while ago. Everton are in pole position to sign Mason Melia of St. Patrick's Athletic. He's a hugely talented young player. Leicester are set to be charged with breaching the Premier League's profit and sustainability rules last season and could start next season with a points deduction, which, makes sense. A host of Premier League and foreign clubs are tracking Birmingham City's under-16 striker, Toby Gorgie, who qualifies for both England and Nigeria and is meant to be very, very talented. So there you go. That is us. I'll be back after the break and we'll have Guy. See you soon. Right. Welcome back. So joining us after a week of illness. Well, it wasn't a week of illness, but you were ill for a while. Is Guy Drinkle. How are you, sir?
I am alive again.
Good stuff. That Norwegian flu finally caught up with you. You'd been pushing your luck for a long time living that far north.
Mama flu, as we call it.
Right. We have 10 games in the Premier League, including, for the first time in 3 weeks, a 12:30 kickoff. And what should, unlike last Monday, be quite an entertaining and competitive Monday night game.
Well, get ahead of yourself with a Chelsea game there, I think, dude.
Well, it'll be competitive if not entertaining.
Yeah, but we'll start with a 12:30 kickoff, which is a rarity nowadays because Liverpool's done their quarter, I suppose. We have United hosting Everton, Dave, the Wayne Rooney derby. I believe he's got a nice shiny TNT contract to go into punditry as well for this one. So yeah, look forward to that. But Man United, who Eric Ten Hag today saying no side can deal with these injuries, as Liverpool sit top of the league dealing with these injuries.
Worse injuries.
And Everton, who have had injuries all season as well, scrapping away with points deductions, etc. I mean, I haven't looked at the injuries. I know there's plentiful, and United seemingly don't want to trust their academy, which we discussed 2 weeks ago, I believe. It's just whether Everton are the right team to attack them, but they do have some dangerous players. And as we saw last weekend, Everton can get in dangerous positions. It's just whether they can actually score the goals, because, well, that was their issue last weekend, especially, and probably all season, let's be honest. But if United are rocking out with Lindelof at left back again and other stuff like that, I could see Everton scoring. It's just whether they keep out the other end.
If United rock out with Lindelof at left back, they deserve to concede goals because there's no call for it at all. Luke Shaw is out probably for the remainder of the season. Lisandro Martinez is out for another month. Martial, I mean, he's meant to be back at the end of the month, but whether or not he plays, he's not a player they should be even considering. Rasmus Højlund, Harry Maguire, and Aaron Wan-Bissaka are probably a week away. All of them have different, degrees of injuries. Højlund and Maguire, those were smaller injuries. Wan-Bissaka has been out for a while with something he picked up in training. But next weekend is when they're expected back. Malacia, again, expected back next week. Mason Mount, expected back next week. Marcus Rashford and Johnny Evans apparently past fit for this one. So 8 players out, but in a week, 5 of them could be back. So this idea that United are so hard done by is just nonsensical. It's just Ten Hag making excuses for how poor they've been. Everton, they're in better health. They have Dele Alli done for the year. He's got other things to focus on before he gets back on the pitch. Arnaud Danjuma out till the end of the month. Idrissa Gana Gueye, they're hopeful, will be fit for this weekend. So all going well for Everton, just the 2 players out, and they don't have to really worry about too many injuries. Now, in the form table, if we look at the last 10 games, Manchester United. Oh, they're 8th. I was looking lower. They're 8th. They've won 5, drawn 1, and lost 4. Everton are 18th. No wins in their last 10, which is quite remarkable. Over the last 6 home games, United are 12th in the form table. 3 wins, a draw, and 2 defeats. Everton, in terms of the away form table over the last 6 away games, are actually 13th. 1 win, 2 draws, 3 defeats. Everton have what it takes to go there and win. They're big, they're physical, they've got aerial threat, which United will struggle to deal with if Maguire's not there. Varane is good in the air. The issue with Varane is he doesn't compete a lot in the air. He tends to let Maguire or Lindelof or Evans kind of be the one to go and try and win things, and then he sweeps up in behind. And that's fair enough if that's what you want to do.
Which striker would you pick for Everton? Because obviously Beto missed the penalty, which I think everyone knew he was.
And he missed a sitter.
He did, but they did look...
They look better and they
fluid.
look more cohesive. And Dominic Calvert-Lewin has not been good this season. Like, this is now, I think, year 3 of this with Calvert-Lewin, where he just doesn't look like he's all that committed to the cause. Like, we obviously had the season that started under Benitez, where he was injured for a fair chunk of that year. That was coming off the back of the 2 best seasons of his career, where he'd scored 15, followed by 21 in all competitions. So 36 goals across 2 years. In the near 3 seasons since then, he has scored 11 goals combined. He got 5 in 18, 2 in 18, and this year it's 4 in 25. Now, again, there have been injuries, but injuries don't explain everything. Like, they just don't. You were a near 1 and 2 striker for 2 years. And now, I mean, it's just shocking, really. You're 1 and 6, 1 and 5. Beto works harder off the ball. He's not as good as Calvert-Lewin. Calvert-Lewin's a better footballer, and I do wonder if part of it is Calvert-Lewin has bought into his own hype, understands that the window for him to leave was probably the summer of 2021 when United were interested in him and Everton were demanding 75 million and nobody was going to pay that because, again, you're Dominic Calvert-Lewin. But it's 3 years now of this abject performance level and fairly frequent injuries. I would start Beto, and I think if you go Beto... See, I would go Beto with Onana behind and play... Then what do you do with Doucouré is the question.
I think Doucouré has probably been their most consistent threat, at least.
Yeah, see, that's the thing. You've got to have Doucouré in. But Dyche likes to have Idrissa Gana Gueye in, and then James Garner is the prototypical Sean Dyche, neat and tidy midfielder. But Onana is better than both of them. So I would actually go Onana and Garner with Doucouré in front, and then McNeil and Harrison in the wide areas. And I would look to just overrun and overpower United and bombard them with aerials, especially if I've got Patterson at right back and Michaelenko at left back. I would be looking to cross from everywhere and get Doucouré in the box and get Onana in the box and use the crossing ability I have. And if I'm crossing from the right, I'm getting my left winger in the box as well. If I'm crossing from the left, I'm getting my right winger in the box. And I'd be looking to put 3 and 4 and 5 into that United box at every possible opportunity and bombard them at crosses, because Lindelof isn't great in the air. Maguire can't really jump anymore. And Onana is dreadful on crosses. Like, absolutely shocking. And I would be looking to take advantage of that. And that's where I would look to get my goals. Everton have been, to their credit, very good defensively this year. They've only conceded 37 goals in the league. If we look at the Premier League table, only the top 3 have conceded less goals than Everton. They've conceded the same number as Villa, less than Tottenham, less than United, and then considerably less than everybody else. So Everton's defence has been excellent. The issue has been they can't score goals, and the biggest reason for that is they don't commit enough bodies forward. Sean Dyche would probably be very happy with a draw here, and a draw here is not a bad result. So I'm going to go the draw, because I don't think he'll commit the bodies forward. I'll go 1-1.
Yeah, it wouldn't surprise me if like Garner's right wing or something like that.
Yeah, and he just goes really, really cautious. with how he sets the team up. And like United should beat them. United are a better team than Everton. There's no doubt about that. Even if you give Everton their 10 points back, or their 6 points back, rather, there are 13 points between them. So there's a sizable gap between them. United should beat them, but United don't look like they know how to beat anybody at the moment, and they're reliant entirely on Bruno and Rashford to pull things out of the bag. And the problem with Rashford is he's as far out of form now as I've ever seen him. It looks like he's not focused. It looks like he doesn't want to be there. And Bruno also looks like he doesn't want to be there. So I'm going to go with the draw. I'll go 1-1.
Yep, not the two you want to go back for you, I believe. And speaking of not going for something you want, probably these two teams you don't really want to watch at a 3 o'clock, and that is Bournemouth against Sheffield United. Bournemouth weren't great last weekend, got the win because, well, they simply were just better than Burnley in front of goal. Sheffield United, I think every week, every Friday, we just discuss they're getting worse and worse historically. It wouldn't surprise me if this is almost similar to the Burnley game where Sheffield United look capable at times. And then I believe Solanke might be a doubt, which is the only issue, but there's probably still enough goals in that Bournemouth front line, even without Solanke, to hurt a team like Sheffield United.
Yeah, so Solanke's a doubt, Ryan Christie's a doubt, Lloyd Kelly likely to miss out, James Hill is out, Max Aarons is back, Tyler Adams not quite back yet, Sinisi is out, and Frederick's out. So the worry here for Bournemouth is who's starting at centre-back next to Zabarni, because the three options you would normally suggest, Sinisi, Kelly, and Hill, are all out.
Is Metham still there?
Metham, is Metham there, or is he on loan? I thought he went on loan. Hang on. We'll have a look. Chris Metham. No, he is there. So Chris Metham is going to start. Okay. So fair enough. He's not great, but he's a centre-back at least, and he can play.
He's a championship centre-back playing against a championship side.
Championship team. Yeah, a championship team is exactly what they are. And with Sheffield United, like, they've also got a bunch of players out. Max Lowe, Norrington Davies, Basham, Egham, Archer, Ben Slamine, Holgate, Brewster, and Jebison are all out. Some for suspension, most for injuries, and one through illness. So both sides are down to the bare bones of what they have in their squad. Like you said, there's a lot more goals left in that Bournemouth team than there is in that Sheffield United team. Bournemouth also have a better defensive structure than Sheffield United. It's not to say that they're a fantastic defensive team, but they have conceded 25 goals less than Sheffield United this season, which is a lot. It's an awful lot. That's as many goals as Liverpool have conceded all season. So I am going to back Bournemouth to win this game. I think it'll be, like you said, it'll be one of them where there will be spells where Sheffield United look like a football team, and I think they will score one. But when you're conceding 2.7 goals a game, I'm backing you to concede 3 every game. So I'm going to say 3-1 to Bournemouth.
Yeah, and Bournemouth obviously have Unal, is that how you pronounce his name, as backup striker now, so it's not just moving Semenyo and rejigging everything.
Exactly. One in, one out. And Unal is a good player. Like, he is a good player. This is an opportunity for him to grab a goal or two. If Solanke doesn't play, which he may yet.
To be fair, I mean, Bournemouth up one win and a draw from basically guaranteed safety. There's no point rushing Solanke back when he could potentially go to the Euros.
Exactly. And you're going to have, tougher games to come. So it makes more sense, even if he's fit enough to play, have him on the bench, bring him on with 20 to go if you need him. But go with Unal. You brought him in January. This is one you should be winning. You're at home against one of the worst teams historically that the Premier League has ever seen. Just go and get the job done. 3-1.
Yep, I'd think something similar. Next up then, probably not the prettiest fixture, but very interesting nevertheless. Palace hosting Luton, Dave. I mean, we mentioned it a few Fridays. We enjoy the way Luton play and they attack all these games, but the results just aren't there at the minute. I mean, even in the Premier League one where it's only the last 5, it's 4 losses on the bounce. But apart from maybe the Liverpool game, they've been competitive, and maybe the Sheffield United one's the big disappointment, but they've been competitive in them all. Whereas Crystal Palace, obviously, with the new manager, not the biggest bounce, but they got the win over Burnley that they needed. Tottenham was always a hard game. Again, teams can't deal with injuries like United, so Palace having all these injuries just doesn't mean anything. But almost similar to Bournemouth, if Palace win this, maybe a couple more draws and they'll be basically safe. But probably a good opportunity for both sides, I'd say.
Yeah, I mean, Palace know they still have some work to do to stay up. And this is just one of those games that's really big because the team currently sitting in 18th is Luton. So you're 8 points clear of them. If you win, you're 11 points clear of them, and you've knocked them as well. So this one is huge for Crystal Palace. At home, I think Glasner will be wanting to make the home form something that they focus on. Like you said, Palace have a lot of injuries. No Doucouré, no Holding, no Guehi, no Elise, no Schlupp. AU could be back, but it's a doubt. Raksaki and Franca out, which is a blow because I think he was going to get a lot of game time given the other injuries. For Luton, they've got players out as well, and a lot of them. Lockyer, Nakamba, Potts, Johnson, Adebayo is a big one. Jacob Brown is out. Lakonga's out. Bell is out. Anderson's out. And there's a doubt over Gabriel Oshu. So they had a small squad to begin with, and now they've got 9 players out.
That's the same tight at the back.
It's going to be very, very tight. Like, you could be talking about having to shift players around in multiple positions to try and plug gaps the way other clubs are having to do. You look at the injury numbers, and Bournemouth have 8. Arsenal currently have 1 injury and then some doubts. We'll get to them. Villa have a bunch of injuries, long-term ones. Brentford have had injuries all season, so have Brighton. Burnley have injuries. Chelsea have had injuries all season. We know about Palace. We know what the situation is there. Everton and Fulham, very, very fortunate at the moment. Liverpool hammered. Luton hammered. City, as usual, quite fortunate in this regard. United, they've got a bunch of players out, but the idea that nobody could deal with it, when you look up and down the league, everybody's dealing with similar, bar a small handful of clubs. Newcastle have had loads of injuries this season. So have Forest, so have Sheffield United, so have Spurs, so have West Ham. Wolves have had a lot of injuries. Like, it's just what happens across a long season. Now, it's easier for the bigger clubs to absorb that because, they've got bigger squads in terms of, like, everybody has the same size squad, but they've got more access to players because, generally speaking, they will have stronger academies and they'll have, first team capable players aged 18, 19 and 20 and 21 who they haven't had to register in their squad. So they're able to bulk things out. Like Liverpool, for example. Harvey Elliott's not registered in our squad because he was 20 beginning the year. He won't be registered next year either. But Harvey is a big player for us. Gerald Quansah, Connor Bradley, they've been big players for us this year. They're not part of our squad. You don't see a Crystal Palace or a Luton having those players to bring in, because if they had those players, they'd be starting for them. And that's the blow here. I'm going to back Palace to win. If we look at the form table, last 10 games, they're a dead heat. 3 wins, 2 draws, and 5 defeats for both. Palace's home form, though, over the last 6 is decent. They've won 3, 1 draw, 2 defeats. And Luton's away form is 1 win, 2 draws, 3 defeats. I'm going to go Palace 2-1 in what won't be, I don't think, a particularly entertaining game.
Nope, not pretty, but I suppose Eze can always do stuff. And
to be fair, Ross Barkley is playing some of the best football of his career right now. And he won't make it, but when we get to the end of the season and people are discussing team of the year, he's worth a mention. I'm not saying he's worth consideration.
If you do a non-top 6 team of the season, which will be one of the filler pods on many a podcast.
Of course it will.
Yeah.
He'll be in it.
Yeah.
And if they stay up, then maybe he does warrant consideration for a Team of the Year berth, because it will have been largely about what he's doing to enable them to have a foothold in midfield in a lot of games.
Yeah, he's been really good. Been really good. Wolves versus Fulham, Dave, last 3 p.m. kickoff. Wolves doing really well, as we mention all the time. Fulham, I think last time I was on, I called them the most boring team in the league, or kind of pointless too, and then they won 3 out of 4. So Fulham, you're boring again. Keep it going, lads. I suppose Fulham, probably the target, obviously top half's probably the target, but finishing above Chelsea again is a real opportunity. I mean, they probably want to be the top side in West London, which it's very much realistic considering the way Chelsea are playing. And as we'll get to, Chelsea do have a tough game on Monday.
They do, and if Fulham win this game, they will actually jump Wolves, because there's 3 points between them, and both sides have the same goal difference. Both sides are -3, so a 1-0 Fulham win will put them to -2, Wolves to -4, and they'd have the same points, so Fulham would be 10th. And I mean, given everything that's gone on this season with the Mitrovic stuff and the injuries and all the noise about Paulinho and the noise about the manager and everything else, I mean, that will be a hell of an achievement. I don't think they'll finish top 10, but the fact that they're not looking over their shoulder. One more win and they're fine. Like, realistically, they win this weekend, they're safe, because there's not a hope in hell that any of the bottom 3, and I don't think Forest or Everton are even getting to 38 points this year.
I think 35's probably more than enough already. Do
you know what I mean? So I think they win this. They're safe. I think they're good anyway. They're safe anyway. They could pick up a bunch of draws along the way and they'll be all right. But yeah, they'll be motivated going into this one. But Wolves obviously have done well in a lot of home games. Now, to be fair, it's generally home games against the bigger teams. If we look at the form table across the last 10 games, Wolves are in better form. 6 wins, 1 draw, and only 3 defeats. That's really good. Fulham are 10th, 4 wins, 2 draws, 4 defeats, and a goal difference of 0 across 10 games. It's pretty decent. Home form, Wolves are 10th, 3 wins, a draw, and 2 defeats. They've lost 2 of the last 3 at home. And away form, Fulham are not good. They are 18th, 1 away win. But it was their last game, and it was away to United. So that will be confidence boosting for them. Injury-wise, Fulham have Raul Jimenez out, but João Palhinha is back, which is obviously huge. And for Wolves, no Hwang and no Cunha. So that's massive. But they do have João Gomes back. Pedro Neto's been past fit. Jose Sa is back fit. And Craig Dawson should be okay. I see a draw. I just see a draw when I look at this game. I'll go 2-2.
Just quickly, what do you make of Rodrigo Muniz? Because we obviously mentioned not replacing Mitrovic, and they got Broja in January and stuff like that. But this lad
is playing brilliantly, isn't he?
Yeah, he does look like a regen of Mitrovic. I mean, I saw him at Middlesbrough, obviously, and he barely got a kick there. But yeah, he looked really good.
There's been a few players over the years that have gone to Borough on loan and not gotten much of a run at all, and then gone elsewhere and done really well. I am impressed. He was there with Cameron Archer, wasn't he? Weren't the two of them there together the back half of last season?
You were there last season, or was it the season before?
22-23.
I can't remember if they sent him back then, got Cameron Archer, because it was Chuba Akpom who was the main
He played
striker.
the whole season. He was there the whole season, but he played 17 games out of 46.
So they must have, right, so they must have got Archer.
They had overlap. Like, that'd be a fairly tasty strike partnership to have in the Premier League if you were looking at the next 5-6 years. Muniz is only 22, I
probably
think.
Chuba Rapcon's the one who's struggling the most, and he was the main one.
And he was the main guy.
Yeah.
Yeah. So I've been really impressed with what I've seen from him. I thought he was brilliant against Brighton, and he's brave, he's aggressive, his hold up play is good, he's clever, he makes all the right runs.
Bullied United.
Absolutely destroyed them, and it's starting to click for him more in front of goal. Now he's only got 6 goals on the season, but look, it's only 22 appearances, and I think about half of them were, or close to half were sub appearances.
He was rotating along, wasn't
he? Yeah, for a good while with Jimenez, and then obviously, like you said, they bring in Broja, but he's the one that's really stepped up, and I think he's going to save them a lot of money. I really do. He looks a very, very good player, and he's going to be a handful for that Wolves backline who don't really like that kind of mix of pace and movement and power. Looking forward to watching more and more of him as he starts to develop more, because he might be a big money sale for Fulham down the line.
Yeah, absolutely. Number 9's rare hen's teeth, as we know. So very interesting. But we'll move on to the 5:30 kickoff, Dave, and then we've got Arsenal hosting Brentford. Again, it's almost boring talking about Arsenal because we've not had the most difficult fixtures in recent weeks, and probably put this in that category again. It's just a game they'll probably win, and probably win comfortably. Maybe Brentford have a bit more goal threat than the recent teams. But I think Arsenal comfortably win this one again.
Oh, yeah. I mean, Arsenal should win this one very comfortably. Brentford have no De Silva, no Henry, no Me, no Hickey, no Sade, no Pinnock. And Brian Mbeumo is back in training, but he's not expected to be ready for this. So now maybe he will be, but it looks unlikely. For Arsenal, David Raya can't play because he's owned by Brentford.
Mm-hmm.
But Jurriën Timber is the only actual injury they have. There's doubts over Zinchenko and Tomiyasu, but they should both be fine. They've missed a few games. They should both be back. For this one, Saka should be fine. Martinelli's a bit more of a doubt because he has a cut on his foot, and he might just get the game off. But it's worth remembering that Arsenal play this game. They've got Inter Milan they've got Porto in the Champions League.
I wish it was Inter Milan.
with a deficit. But then they don't play for like 19 games or 19 days. That's a long time to be off at this point of the season. Whereas, both Liverpool and City play that FA Cup game on the Saturday. Arsenal will win. They will. Like, we look at the form table, last 10 games, City first, Liverpool second, Arsenal third. 7 wins and a draw. 2 defeats. Brentford, last 10 games, 2 wins, 1 draw, 7 defeats. Brentford away form, last 6 games, 1 win and 5 defeats. Arsenal home form, 5 wins and 1 defeat. Arsenal are second in the home form list. Brentford are second last in the home form list. Arsenal to win this game 4-1.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. Moving on to Sunday, then we have Villa hosting Spurs at 1:00 because police moved the latter kickoff. So I'm guessing they missed this one. Move this one for TV purposes, so don't get caught out with that, people. Villa hosting Spurs. Villa, by the sounds of it, because I was watching the Liverpool game, didn't have the best performance on Thursday, but was it awful? Well, I can only imagine.
Between the two teams, they had 8 shots.
Oh, dear me.
They had 2 on target. And the only excitement was in the 83rd and 85th minute when the 2 boys got sent off. And that was it. Yeah. I had it on the second screen. I was obviously watching our game. I had it on just out of morbid curiosity. And it was woeful. Genuinely woeful. Both sides, like Villa will be thrilled. That's the perfect Unai Emery go and bore your way to an away draw in Europe, and then we'll beat them at home type of result. But it was an insult to like the great history of Ajax that they were involved in such shenanigans. But it set them up nicely for this one. They were able to rest some players, and they'll come into this one confident because Villa are ahead of Spurs in the table. Now their away form has not been as good. The home form has not been as good. 3 wins, a draw, and 2 defeats. They've lost 2 of their last 3 at home. Spurs away form is very hit and miss. 1 win, 3 draws, 2 defeats. So both of them sitting firmly in the mid-table regions of the form table for that. In terms of overall form over the last 10 games, Spurs have a slight advantage. 6 wins, 2 draws, 2 defeats to Villa's 5 wins, 2 draws, 3 defeats. They're both good teams. They're both flawed teams. Both are missing some players ahead of this one. So for Villa, obviously Boubacar Kamara is the big one. Not having him in midfield is a huge blow. Emi Buendia and Tyrone Mings have been out all season. Yon Duran's probably a week or 2 away. Jacob Ramsey, they're hoping he's going to be okay, but he does have a foot injury, so we'll have to wait and see. Spurs, no Sessegnon, no Fraser, no Manor Solomon. They're all out for a while. But Richarlison, probably still a week or so away. Pedro Porro, they're hoping is good to go, and that will be huge to get him back because he's vital to how they play. And if they've got Porro, Romero, Van de Ven and Adoiji, that defence has looked good in front of Vicario. It's looked balanced. The midfield is back whole again, though he's playing Bentancur over Pape Matar Sarr at the moment because Sarr's form was a bit iffy, which is the norm with young players. But you've got Basuma back, you've got Maddison back and playing well. Son is in good form. Kulusevski's finding some form. Timo Werner's always going to be hit and miss.
How many times is he going to be offside on Sunday?
Oh, at least 6. At least 6. But Timo Werner against the high line will be a weapon because there will be 1 or 2 where he times the run right. And as long as he draws the goalkeeper and then squares it for someone else to do the whole shooting part, I think that could be a real weapon for Tottenham in this game. This is going to probably be one of the more end-to-end games that we see because Villa at home are very aggressive, very attack-minded. Spurs are incredibly attack-minded. Both sides will play a high line. I think this is going to be high scoring, and I'm actually going to edge Spurs to win. I'm going to go 4-3 to Tottenham in a game that's just mental from start to finish.
Yeah, it's a huge game because if Villa do win, they go 8 points ahead with a game in hand. So 5 points.
Well, Spurs have the game in hand, yeah.
Yeah.
But if Spurs win, they're only 2 points behind with that game in hand. So it's a huge game. It's a huge game for both teams because obviously Villa have the Conference League to focus on, and they're going to have to go strong next week against Ajax at home. And then you're looking at quarterfinal, semi-final, and potentially a final. So they're going to have to be playing players more frequently, whereas Spurs, they only have this to focus on. Do you know? They don't have FA Cup. They don't have Europe. It's just this. And they play Fulham next weekend away, which will be tough. Then Luton at home. Whereas Villa have West Ham away next weekend, which is a tough one. So potentially, we head into the international break with Spurs a point ahead because they've won 2 games and Villa have lost 2 games and a game in hand. And that is going to put huge pressure on Villa to try and, get themselves back into that top 4 where they want to be. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a really fun battle between those two, I think, for 4th. And I'm really glad it's those 2 teams because the 2 clubs I like, the 2 clubs that I think have gone about things the right way. Unfortunately for Villa, they are probably going to be up against the FFP wall this summer. But, they've built a team over a couple of years. If they have to sell somebody, I've said before, I think Douglas Luiz is the obvious one to look to move on. You keep Kamara, you keep Ramsey, and maybe you look to bring in, I don't know, like a 20 to 25 million pound midfielder who potentially can replicate a lot of what Luis was doing and then develop to be the same level or better. I've mentioned Lamine Kamara for everybody. Lamine Camara. Go and get him for about 15 million. Sell Douglas Luiz to Arsenal for 75. You're going to be 60 million in profit. And when you look at amortization, you're probably coming out about 50 million up profit-wise across the two deals. And that should solve your FFP problems. And you keep Jacob Ramsey, whose upside is enormous. You keep Kamara, whose upside is enormous. And maybe then you can make some fringe moves around the edges and improve the team elsewhere as well.
Yeah, I think them just getting lads back from injury not fixes the depth issues, but it certainly adds to the squad next year without doing anything. So
For sure. And there's going to be a couple of those lads. Like, I mean, they might look to sell Tyrone Mings. And because they bought him so long ago, that might be very close to complete profit now on Mings, because the transfer fee through amortization should be down to zero.
Yeah, it must be in a second contract now.
Yeah, he almost certainly is. And, you know, Mings is probably not going to want to be a backup at his age, given he was in the England squad not that long ago. And you will find a foolish club that will probably give you 25 to 30 million for him. So that's money you could bank. And maybe there's other moves on the fringes that you could look to make where you can, you know, maybe Duran, if the Chelsea interest is real, maybe you turn that 15 million purchase into 50 million, given Chelsea are a bit silly. And that could go a long way. Like there might be ways around it for them to solve their issue without having to sell a Douglas Luiz or a Jacob Ramsey or an Ollie Watkins. Now, the question then is, how do you actually improve the team? But maybe you just have to stand pat for a year. Maybe you just have to accept that, right, next year might be a step backwards, but then our books start to free up a bit, and then we can go and spend again.
Yeah, you get a year of the Champions League money without massive spend. But we'll move on to Brighton hosting Nottingham Forest. They've miserable midweek for many, many, many Italian reasons for Brighton. Dave and Forest obviously still crying about last weekend. It's not. It might be a good game of football, but the feel around these two clubs probably not the greatest at the minute.
It couldn't be more miserable, could it? I mean, the only thing more miserable this weekend would be Sheffield United against Everton. But the only thing that could be more miserable than this,
with Burnley watching from the stands,
that's exactly it.
With special Burnley guest referee Vincent Kompany,
reffing. You've got Josh Brownhill and Jay Rodriguez as running the lines, and you've got Wilson Odebert and James Trafford as the VAR and assistant VAR, and whoever else then
as fourth official,
just for the pure misery of it. Yeah, neither of these teams are in good form. Brighton have won 3 of their last 10. 4 draws, 3 defeats. Forest have won 3 of their last 10. 1 draw, 6 defeats. Forest's away form, 1 win, 2 draws, 3 defeats. Brighton's home form is a bit better. 6 games, 3 wins, 3 draws. But Brighton are horrible defensively at the moment, and they're terrified of anything resembling a big, strong, powerful striker with a bit of pace. And oh, look, here comes Teo Awoniyi. So that could be a route to victory here for Forest. Forest are aggrieved last weekend because they wanted things to go in their favour that shouldn't have gone in their favour. And it's just very, very bizarre. Brighton got walloped in midweek, and the funniest thing I've seen is the guy kicking the packet of pasta across his house in Brighton last night. That was quite amusing. God, injury-wise, it's just a miserable game. Injury-wise, Forest, no Aina, no Tavares, no Wood. Willy Bolly and Dominguez, they hope, will be okay.
Oh, Dominguez didn't die, did he?
No, actually, it just took him 27 minutes to get off the pitch because he was tired, apparently, even though he was claiming he couldn't walk and trying to get them to bring a stretcher on for him. No Solly March done for the season. No Kaoru Matoma. done for the season. No Hinchelwood, probably done for the season. João Pedro, probably another few games away. Billy Gilmore is suspended. And James Milner is out, which is obviously a big boost for Brighton. This won't be... Defensively, this is going to be a bad game, but I'm going to go 3-2 to Brighton. I just think they'll have enough going forward to take advantage of the weaknesses in that Forest team. And Forest are not good away from home.
Yeah, I was just checking the table in between tabs. I suppose Brighton just have to try and recoup and get back into Europe because, well, they're not going to overturn Roma, barring a miracle.
Yeah, like they're only 3 points behind West Ham. They're only 5 points behind United. They're good enough to string together, 3 wins and 2 draws from their next 5, which might well loft them up the table into 7th. And then, you've got a 6-game run where you just need to take 2 points more than United. You're going to have a superior goal difference to United because they can't score goals. It's possible. It's absolutely possible that they can get back. And look, if they go out of Europe, it might actually help them because they can only focus then on one thing. They've already gone out of the FA Cup. Going out of Europe might just allow them to focus back in on the league. And those 4 teams, United, West Ham, Newcastle, and Brighton, none of them are teams you'd bet a significant amount of money on them putting together a run of results, but Brighton have as much chance as any of the rest of them of doing it. So they need to start here. That's going to be it for them.
Yep, they really do. They really do.
I said if they could win 3 wins and 2 draws from the next 5 games, and as I look at their fixtures, Forest, the City game has been postponed, so that's that. Liverpool away, Brentford, which is tough. They could win that one. Arsenal, which is tough, but they're at home. And Burnley away, which, again, not the easiest, but they should win it. They could definitely get 3 wins and a draw from the next 5 and then lose at Anfield, which is the best. That's the best outcome for everybody involved.
Yeah, absolutely. But next up, we'll talk about West Ham, one of the Europa opponents of Brighton. They're hosting Burnley. Again, not a great result for West Ham, and VAR shenanigans as well didn't probably help David Moyes' mood. But they do host Burnley, which is always a good mood for people playing Burnley because they are not very good.
They're not, no.
Yeah, West Ham should win this.
They should. They should win this, and they should win it pretty comfortably, given that they're at home. West Ham have no Max Cornet, no Naif Agard, but they're hopeful that Emerson Palmieri might be back. Burnley, no Ramsey, no Redmond, no Foster, no Kolioshu, no Bayer, but Josh Brownhill is back. Last 10 games, Burnley have 1 win and 2 draws. They're 19th in the form table. West Ham have 4 wins, 3 draws, 3 defeats. They are 9th in the form table. West Ham's home form, 3 wins, 2 draws, and 1 defeat puts them 7th in the home form table. Burnley are 17th in the away form table with that 1 win, 1 draw, and 4 defeats. So I'm going to pick West Ham to win this game 3-1.
Yep, don't think many will be watching that. Liverpool hosting City, they have the big one in the title, the big one for the weekend as well. You've obviously done a full preview on it, but if you want to add anything here, just for the 2-footed listeners, obviously, but the big one of the weekend.
Yeah, the big one of the weekend, maybe the big one of the season. This is a great Super Sunday, though, with Villa, Tottenham, and then Liverpool City. Like, you couldn't ask for more if you're a neutral. As a Liverpool fan, though, this is absolutely nerve-wracking. Going into the game, Liverpool have, well, lots of injuries. No Matip, no Becker, no Jota, no Trent, no Jones, no Gravenberch, no Basetic, no Alcantara. But Joe Gomez is fine and Ibu is touch and go. It's a wait and see type of moment. So we'll see. We'll see. If he's back, if he's available, it's massive. City, no Grealish, no Doku, but Matthias Nunes should be okay after that horrific looking dislocated finger in the week. Liverpool are going to rely very heavily on the power of Anfield here. Last 10 games, City are top of the form table, 9 wins and a draw. Liverpool are second, 8 wins, a draw and a defeat. Home form, Liverpool are fourth, 4 wins, 2 draws. Away form, City are second, 5 wins and 1 defeat. I think Anfield is massive here. I'm going to go for the Liverpool win. I went 3-1 on Scouted. I'm going to go 3-1 again. Liverpool need a raucous crowd, a fast start, and a little bit of luck. I think they can get a goal ahead, and then they can live on the counter-attack against what is a little bit slow through the middle for City in terms of their centre-backs. Akanji's not the quickest over short distances. Diaz doesn't have much pace, and neither does John Stones, neither does Rodri. Midfield battle will be huge. I'm going to go 3-1 to Liverpool.
Yeah, absolutely massive game. Hope you're bloody right with the score. Moving on to Monday, then, Dave, we have Chelsea hosting Newcastle. Probably a bigger game for Newcastle because, let's be honest, Chelsea's season, bar the FA Cup, is kind of done anyway. Newcastle can obviously, they are in that Europa race, as we mentioned with Brighton there. Whereas Chelsea, I suppose they could technically still enter that, but other than the bucks and the money you get from that, if you're Chelsea manager, whether that's Poch or whoever for next season, again, we all thought this last season, you'd want the 3 weeks off to get your ideas in place. It didn't work this season, but maybe a good manager would.
Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, it is a big... Like, what kind of money would Chelsea make from the Europa Conference League? You know, like a minuscule amount.
It's not going to stop them having to sell Gallagher, Cole.
No,
whatever.
Exactly. And it's not going to stop them having more financial issues with FFP next summer, as well as the ones they'll have this summer. So it doesn't really make any sense. Like, they'd nearly be better off just finishing 8th than finishing 7th, because I think they would benefit more from having that training time. Now, like you said, it hasn't made a blind bit of difference this year, but we don't know who will be in charge next year. It could be Poch, could be somebody else. I think it's probably more likely to be somebody else. I think Julian Nagelsmann is potentially the one that they'll go for. He seemed to be the first choice last summer. Wouldn't be surprised if he's first choice again this summer. Going into the game, Chelsea always have injuries, which is what happens when you buy injury-prone players. But no Fofana, no Lavia, no Nkunku, no James, no Badiashile, no Chukwuemeka. Levi Colwill, a significant doubt. Conor Gallagher, a slight doubt. Ugochukwu and Chilwell both out as well. And Ben Chilwell, it doesn't sound the best. He's going to have to see a specialist for an issue in his knee. And remember, he had a torn ACL not that long ago. So you'd hope it's nothing too serious, because you never like to see players missing long periods of time. But I mean, he's a bit of a prick, so wouldn't shed too many tears for him. For the Toon, no Tonali, no Wilson, no Jolington, no Pope, no Trippier. Lewis Hall can't play because he's technically still owned by Chelsea, and Matt Targett is a doubt. So Livramento right back and Dan Burn left back. Form, last 10, neither have been particularly good. Newcastle are 14th, 3 wins, 2 draws. Chelsea are 7th, 5 wins, 2 draws, 3 defeats, which isn't bad, but it was, against a fairly soft schedule. Last 6 home games, Chelsea are 5th, 4 wins, 1 draw, 1 defeat. Away form, Toon are 11th, 2 wins, 4 defeats. I'll just go with draw. Because it should be competitive. I was mistaken earlier when I said it would be entertaining. Chelsea are not entertaining. Newcastle really aren't either. The midfield battle will be fairly interesting.
It changed up tactically last week. A bit more defensive.
Yeah. To be fair, a bit smarter. but didn't really work. Oh, you mean Newcastle?
Yeah, Newcastle. Yeah, sorry.
Yeah. Sitting in and countering.
Nothing's worked for Chelsea, Dave.
That's their best option here, is to sit in and counter, because Chelsea can be got at in that way. When you move at pace at Chelsea, defensively they tend to be a little bit all over the place. And I mean, Chalobah might have to start here, and he's barely kicked the ball all season, so could be a little bit rusty. If Chilwell's out, you'd wonder who's going to play left back. Probably, I mean, Cucurella. He's not kicked the ball in months, in anger. So
why do you see the left back again? That worked last time.
He's injured.
Oh, no.
So you might have to go, if you have to go Gusto, Disasi, Chalobah, and Cucurella. They haven't played together before.
Oh God!
And then we know the midfield doesn't work very well. The goalkeeper's decent, but the midfield doesn't work. Back in. And then the attack doesn't work. So I'll go. Do you know what? I'll go 2-1 to Newcastle. I'll go 2-1 to Newcastle, just given the speed that they can counter at with Gordon. Obviously, Isak is quick. Barnes is really quick. Almiron's quick. I think they can get at Chelsea. If they're strong defensively, I think they'll get at Chelsea. I'll go 2-1 to Newcastle.
And that's the last game.
And that's us. That is us done for the week. We will be back Monday. Take care of yourselves, folks. Have a good one. Bye-bye.
Sports Social Podcast Network.